Hey War of the Vision fans, welcome back to another episode of War of the Visions. I'm your host, the global original Nashtaters, and that is right folks, today we're going to get an item that essentially increases your magic attack and not resistance. Wow, it's kind of a cool item, so let's go ahead and talk about that item. So let's go ahead and begin this video by talking about the Galmia coat in terms of what it's going to look like if you +5 it. We're going to look at all the materials needed. You're going to need a lot of this, 1,890, 3,150 of this one, which is by far one of the hardest things to get in this game, the Joyful Heart. These bone chips you can farm with some of the normal quest events that they offer, and of course the light mega crisps, which are also very hard to farm. So 60 recipes, obviously, you can see that's a lot of investment. But here's the unique thing about the Galmia coat. It gives you magic base attack power up of 15%. That is an insane amount, okay? That's an insane amount. So this will add to your casters. Now let's take a look at weapon. And what we're gonna see is we're gonna see a big difference of what MAG attack power versus magic attack up. So MAG attack power essentially is the base attack power of your caster or physical unit. Generally speaking, the casters are going to take more advantage of the MAG capitalized because that's the base magical power. A lot of the skills in this game will use based off of your base attack power or your total magic attack power. Now the MAG attack up, whenever you see this and you see a number here, it means that number is added to the multiplier of your skill used. For example, let's say Yuna is casting Holy and her multiplier is 200% multiplied by her base magical power, then you will add 15% to that 200% and then multiply by your base magical power. So what does this mean? It means that the coat will add a 15% to Yuna's base magical power, and combined with the weapon and any other stuff you want to add to your unit in terms of increasing the base magical attack power, then you multiply by the skill you're using's multiplier, which in this case will be 15% added to that. Finally, you will get minus all the resistance, of course, and defenses and whatever of spirit of your opponent's unit. That's the final number. So, all in a nutshell, essentially what that means is this code is essentially a must own for your casters, and the 15% is what you really want to aim for, even though look at all the materials you need to just grab one plus 5. It's a lot of dedication, but I'm telling you, as someone who is very stingy and frugal with his materials in this game, this thing is definitely a kick butt code. Now let's take a look at what is the stats that the Ultimate.jp likes to recommend to us. Here we are, we have the code here, as you can see. Ultimate.jp recommends a subtype of barrier, which will give you 18 spirit, 4 defense, and 4 accuracy. And if you want to take a look at the rest, they're not really that good because the shield, it gives you only 8 defense, which is kind of weird because it's shield and shield would give you more, but because the base defense is already low, that multiplier doesn't seem to be adding up. A vital gives you 690 hit points, but essentially you have almost non-existent of your other stats. Personally, I agree with this recommendation because generally speaking, casters in this game are also most of the time weak to magic attack, with the exception of Yuna. And I think it goes without saying, this is probably why perhaps Yuna is one of the most sought after unit currently, and because she's just so good against other casters. And now to show you the actual proof of why the bottom part does not stack, let's take a look real quick. As you can see, I have Titus here, and it has a smart coat equipped, which will add 8% magical resistance. Also has the Titus necklace, which has a magical resistance of 3. So essentially what that should give you is, well, if they stack, 11. But let's take a look at the stat details. As you can see here, this is the magic resistance currently sitting at 18%, okay? So let's go ahead and remove this necklace of 3. So essentially if it does stack, it should give you now 15. It does not give you 15. So we know for a fact that defensive capabilities in terms of resistance do not stack. Now I'm going to give you a few tips in terms of trying to squeeze as much out of your raid as possible. One of the first tips I've learned is whenever you're doing the early stages of raid, which would be like level 1 to say 20, when you're opening up your room, what you really want to do is you want to either go with the 2 players or the 4 players. 4 players means you only put up 1 of your unit, and 2 players means you put up 2 of your units. If you have a strong enough unit to do say level 1 to 20 of your raid boss, I would suggest just maybe go with the 4 players, because my understanding is you get a little bit more points for completing the raid. As the raids get harder and harder, you might consider doing 2 players, so using 2 of your units and just go by yourself. So maybe from level 21 to maybe 40, using 2 of your units, you will still get a little bit extra points. And finally, when you're unable to clear your raids without using any orbs, then of course you need to start relying on perhaps using 4 of your units. But bear in mind, you don't get as many points. At least that's what I've seen. You can see I used up all my orbs. But whenever you encounter, when the day resets, raids of not started by you, you actually can go all the way up to 20 raids for free without using any orbs for the very first time you encounter. After that, you're going to have to start using orbs if you want to continue that specific raid. But once you get to raid 21, then the game will start trying to ask you to start using your orbs, even if it's the first beginning encounter of joining someone else's raid. This is something important to bear in mind, especially when you're grinding the raid out with your guildies or your friends, because when you're trying to join some of these Princess Flans, you'll most likely get to the point where you have to start using your own orbs. And I think you need to figure out if that's worthy of using the orbs to gain the extra raid medals. One thing I've learned is that this is something perhaps a lot of people don't read, but it says specifically here, if multiple units are in the formation, the highest value will be set as the bonus. So instead of putting all these different units into one team, you just need to figure out the ones you have the most number of percentage here and the rare drop percent number X times 1.5 or X times 1.3 high as possible. So in this case, obviously Titus could be really good. And of course, if you have these units, they'll be really good. And if you don't, then of course, I will consider perhaps using the second tier. So the last tip of information I want to give is when you're trying to trigger a raid in a very consistent manner. I think the magical number is actually 20 energy, if I'm not mistaken. So obviously, in terms of triggering with your experiment chamber, it's going to be the toppest tier 20, or you can use it for the growth egg chamber of 20, or you can do the hard nodes of when you're farming for shards for your unit. So those are always going to guarantee the trigger. My suggestion is once you have exhausted those things, start potentially farming for the Elchrists. Alright, that's all the time for this video. I want to thank you for watching, because remember, time is the most valuable resource. So I want to thank you for spending your most valuable resource with me and my channel. Until next time, take care of yourself and all your loved ones. Nashtaters out here. Take care.